What if the most dramatic business stories don't begin with failure, but with success that comes too fast? What if the rise of an empire plants the seeds of its own collapse? Kylie Cosmetics didn't just launch, it exploded. It rewrote the rules of celebrity business overnight, turned influence into revenue at an unprecedented scale, and made the idea of a self-made beauty empire feel inevitable. And then, just as quickly, the cracks appeared. This isn't just the story of a brand. It's the story of how hype rises, how it breaks, and how real rebuilding begins only after illusion fades. The rise of Kylie Cosmetics was perfectly timed. Social media was entering its golden age. Instagram rewarded visuals, personalities, and immediacy. Kylie wasn't just a founder, she was the platform. Her face was the campaign, her life the narrative, her audience the distribution channel. There was no distance between marketing and product. When she launched the first lip kits, scarcity did the rest. Limited drops sold out in minutes. Screenshots of empty carts became proof of desire. Owning the product felt like belonging to a moment. What made the rise so powerful wasn't just demand, it was identification. Consumers didn't feel like they were buying makeup. They felt like they were participating in Kylie's story. That emotional attachment is what turned products into events. Each launch felt personal, and personal loyalty is far more powerful than traditional branding. But rapid success hides structural weaknesses. When growth is driven primarily by hype and personality, systems lag behind. Early Kylie Cosmetics didn't need deep infrastructure to win. It needed speed, exclusivity, and visibility. And it had all three. But the very things that fueled its rise also made it fragile. As the brand expanded, expectations changed. Consumers matured. The market became crowded. Celebrity brands multiplied. Suddenly, Kylie Cosmetics wasn't competing only on influence. It was competing on quality, consistency, transparency, and trust. And that's when the fall began, not as a collapse, but as erosion. The first signs weren't dramatic. They were subtle. Questions about formulas, concerns about innovation, fatigue with constant launches. The brand that once felt revolutionary began to feel repetitive. And when a product relies heavily on novelty, repetition is dangerous. Then came the narrative shift. Headlines questioned valuations. Critics challenged the self-made story. Trust wavered. The conversation around Kylie Cosmetics changed tone. It was no longer just about what was launching next. It was about whether the brand was as strong as it appeared. This is where many businesses panic. They double down on noise. They defend the past. They chase attention to drown out doubt. Kylie Cosmetics did something different. It slowed down. The fall wasn't marked by bankruptcy or disappearance. It was marked by silence. Fewer launches. Less hype. More behind-the-scenes restructuring. And that silence confused people, because in the age of constant content, slowing down looks like weakness. But in reality, it was the first step toward rebirth. The most misunderstood moment in the Kylie Cosmetics story is the sale of a majority stake. Many saw it as an exit, a loss of control, or an admission that the hype era was over. In truth, it was an acknowledgement of reality. Scaling a global beauty brand requires infrastructure that personal influence alone cannot sustain. The sale wasn't about giving up power. It was about transforming it. Rebirth begins when ego steps aside for structure. With new partners came operational discipline, supply chains, research and development, global distribution strategy. These are not glamorous elements, but they are what turn moments into institutions. Kylie Cosmetics began shifting from a personality-driven brand to a system-driven company. And that transition is always uncomfortable because it doesn't produce immediate applause. The rebirth also required redefining identity. Early Kylie Cosmetics was loud, fast, and reactive. The new phase became quieter, more intentional, and more selective. Product lines were refined. Branding softened. The company stopped trying to dominate every conversation and focused on being present in the right ones. Another key element of rebirth was learning from criticism without being consumed by it. Not all feedback is useful, but some of it reveals where hype outpaced substance. Kylie Cosmetics absorbed those lessons slowly. Reformulation, cleaner aesthetics, more deliberate launches. The brand stopped behaving like a trend and started behaving like a business. This shift also mirrored Kylie's personal evolution. Early success blurred the line between self-worth and performance. When the brand was praised, she was praised. When it was criticized, it felt personal. Rebuilding required emotional separation. A brand must be able to fail, adapt, and grow without destroying the identity of the person behind it. Have you ever built something so tied to your identity that criticism felt like a personal attack? That's the risk of success without distance. Midway through this story, if you're enjoying this deeper look at how empires rise, fall, and rebuild, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment about whether you think fast success helps or harms long-term growth. Your engagement helps keep these conversations going. The rebirth of Kylie Cosmetics also reflects a broader cultural shift. Consumers became more skeptical of perfection. They wanted transparency, not spectacle, reliability, not hype. Kylie Cosmetics adjusted to that shift by stepping out of the constant spotlight and letting the product speak more quietly. This phase isn't about dominating headlines. It's about durability. A brand that can exist without constant validation is a brand that can last. And that's the real difference between the first chapter and the current one. What's important to understand is that rebirth doesn't look like a second explosion. It looks like stability, slower growth, fewer viral moments, more consistency, and for audiences trained to expect spectacle that can feel anticlimactic. But in business, anticlimax is often a sign of health. The rise was about possibility. The fall was about reality. The rebirth is about integration. Kylie Cosmetics had to outgrow the story that made it famous in order to survive. It had to let go of the myth of effortless success and replace it with something less glamorous but more resilient. Systems, teams, patience. And that's the part most people don't see. Because rebuilding quietly doesn't trend. But it's what separates brands that burn bright and disappear from those that adapt and endure. Would you have the discipline to rebuild something everyone thinks is already finished? Would you accept fewer headlines today for a stronger foundation tomorrow? These are hard choices, especially when the world expects constant performance. Kylie Cosmetics is no longer just a symbol of internet-era hype. It's a case study in evolution, in understanding that attention opens doors, but structure keeps them open. In learning that success must eventually be supported by systems stronger than personality. The rise made it famous. The fall made it vulnerable. The rebirth made it real. And that final phase is the one that matters most. If you stayed with this story until the end, subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think a brand can truly be reborn after hype fades, or does the first narrative always define it? And do you believe rebuilding quietly is harder than rising loudly? Your voice matters, and this conversation doesn't end here.